So hey, this is like a lore video. I'm literally naming this file lore. So if you're interested in figuring out how the fuck this crazy world of mine works, what the fuck's the rules of it, and there's some little bits of foreshadowing, you'll probably be interested in this. If you're looking for more romance shit, that's not in this audio. I was too goddamn tired for it. I'm sorry. The next video is gonna be really important though, on the backstory of the main crazy person. Um, I'm not quite sure exactly if I'm going to be making that video next, but it's the next video on this mini part of the series. So, look out for that one. As stated in the last video, I am recording these back to back. I'm being very dumb right now. So because of that, I am going to be leaving that here because my throat's kind of going like a fuck you. I hope you guys enjoy the audio and everything. Have a good day, dolls, and, anyone interested in doing audios, don't be fucking stupid like me. Please, no. Anyway, stay safe. Bye-bye. Oh, I feel some movement. Are you finally awake, Doc? Yay, Doc, I was so worried a little. Yeah, Doc. Seeing you... Well, giving you a piggyback ride has been fun, but having to do it while having your collar off you and holding it with one arm, and then also holding you while still keeping my bat with me, it's kind of a pain, Doc. So now that you're awake, I kinda need you to get down so that way I can hold my bat better. We also need to put the collar back on you. We are going to be entering a pretty sketchy place, and I do want to make sure that it's more apparent that you're owned by me and you're not just a random civvy. Just for attention's sake, you know? Um, but with that out of the way, how are you feeling? Is there anything wrong? You were knocked out for a little bit longer than I thought you would be. You're fine? Good. I wouldn't want to hurt you, Doc. Um, I also made a promise. I don't know if your brain still remembers, because, uh, was just before I knocked you out. But I was going to explain general theory, and we do have a little while before we enter a suspicious little hallway. Um, well, wait, they're not called hallways, are they? I more associate them as hallways because of how it's fucking done. But apparently, in case it's out in the open, it's more seen as an alleyway. Ugh. Why do people have to word so hard? Ugh. Yeah, it's just an outdoor hallway. It's beside two walls. Besides, inside a lot of houses you can get rained on too, and it's still considered a hallway. Hmm. Anyway, Doc, to answer some general based knowledge on the theory of abilities, there's three prevalent theories. The first one I know is personally, bullshit, but I'll still tell it to you. The conjecture is that abilities are more of a natural thing. It just always exists. And due to this fact, people are more likely to have abilities tied into them from the genes of their predecessor. Basically, there's some biological component to us that's more affected by our ancestors and such, which allows us to have certain powers. It's possibly why there's certain lineages which have the same type of power set. Um, I personally know that theory is very bullshit. Well, it's seen by certain families have sponsored that a lot. And secondly, um, there's a lot of examples of people which have very divergent or very different powers than what their parents would have or what their family bloodline would have for a very, very long time period. So I personally see that entire theory as nothing more than bullshit. There's a second theory, which is one that's more supported by a few, but also has its own caveats, which is the soul theory. Basically, it's more saying there's some ethereal part of ourselves that decides our power for us. I personally don't really believe this viewpoint as well, um, but it's more possible than the bloodline one. This is more associated because generally people sometimes get powers which are more associated with their passion or very divergent from it, or seem to be more fit with their inherent characteristics, which is, not passed in by your bloodline as much. The association more just says that certain people seem to have the same type of thing because they're raised within the same family and values, so they're more likely to have the same powers. There's like this empirical, and like the counterpoint is one, certain abilities seem to confirm souls exist, other ones seem to say that there aren't souls, and there's certain abilities which should only work on people, things that don't have a soul, and certain abilities that work on people which do have a soul seem to work on both interchangeably. It's possibly that it's just a perspective thing, so that theory is very highly contested as well. And you have the last theory, which is the gift theory. Now, the gift theory is a generous more way of putting it, but there's a lot of individual things that people more claim as very powerful features that gave powers to everyone. That all of us didn't really have powers, but any power that you are gifted is not a natural thing. It's not something in your bloodline. It's not part of your soul. It is an outside force putting a power on you. Sometimes people go over and say it's the jump starting of the abilities, and the bloodline or the soul theory is still true. It's just at the start there weren't abilities, and there was somebody who jump started that process. To every single person that receives an ability has been personally given one by enter X religious figure. I personally am more leery because, while it can make some level of sense that maybe we didn't always have abilities, it seems a little rash to say that, some benevolent figure gave over powers to everyone, especially since I'm aware that certain powers are not benevolent at all. So I lean more towards, personally, the first two theories, or possibly some other thing that's a mix of the other two, the soul and the bloodline one maybe? I don't quite know. Well, Doc, I'm very much aware of these things, but I ain't a theorist. What's the word? One of your big fancy words. I wasn't quite educated, Doc. I don't know those words as much. Theoreticist? Is that the word? It is? Kinda? Alright. Alright, Doc. I'll trust you. I ain't one of those people, but I do know enough. Also, you didn't seem surprised by the fact I didn't know Doc, or that I was messing up that word. So they kept that part on my record, that I was homeless. Great. Great, that's the only thing that was kept on the record that you were aware of. I guess they did that just to make it so you had a bit more sympathy for me, perhaps. Oh, wait, is that why you are more close to me, Doc? Not only because of my gorgeous body, but because of little hints of a tragic past. Honestly, I have no clue if I should be insulted or delighted. My charm wasn't just enough to keep your attention, after all. But anyway, since you're aware of that, I do know some back treads, and that's the reason we're going through. We're going through the under part of the city. Yeah, I have a gateway that just goes through this old alleyway directly to my place. Well, close to directly. We've still got to walk a block after that, but, it should be fine. Secondly, I do need to talk more about the ability ranks. I did allude a little bit that the information you had there wasn't quite 100% accurate. I'll be going into more detail about how it works than, your pamphlet or the information you were more given probably does. So there's a basic rank. Most people know of the bases: D, C, B, A, S. But there's one rank before those ones. Also, each rank does stand for a part. There's actually a word associated with that rank. There is F ranks, which are not on the list. And F stands for feature. Now, someone who has a feature power is someone who's awoken a power. However, features are not necessarily just weaker. Sure, some of them are pretty weak. They can just be somebody having super hearing, super sensitive to certain type of temperatures or something. It can be pretty useless, like just having a slightly better sense of taste all the time. And these generally, the reason they're called F ranks are due to the fact that the ability can't be turned off, period. There's no way to control this ability, which is fine in case you have just a little bit of better hearing, but depending on the extent, can be torturous, even on that mild example. And F ranks are not weak all the time. Somebody can perhaps be, well, have their entire body become fire, and still be living, but they can't turn themselves back to normal. Or one type of funny F-rank story I more went over is a group of people that lived together because at a certain age when they awoken their powers, they became lizard people, literally. They're kind of cordoned off towards their own little section, this own little quarantine for these people. However, because it's more publicly scrutinized, I do hope that they have a better life than most inside such locations. It's the reason that the bloodline theory holds so much weight, due to the fact that if people which are going over and, having children are going to give birth to other children which don't have control over their powers, and those powers can be quite fearsome and strong, after all, it's a roll of a dice, well, it makes sense to put them inside their own location, right? To make sure that then they can't actually hurt the general population. That is the theory for why the containment zones on paper have been built. And perhaps at one point they were true. However, you then move on to those into E ranks. Now, for instance, with the hypersensitivity, you may notice that that is something that you may have heard of a little bit, because nowadays it's considered an E rank. But Doc, the only reason that's the case is because some people had some children who were E ranks, and just by luck, their parents were a higher rank that had an inventing talent. So, with the aid of a lot of money, they create a standardized type of equipment that can more easily be done over, that therefore helps these hypersensitive people gain some level of control over their powers through this external way. And due to that fact, they are no longer considered an F-rank ability, since it is possible for it to be controlled. Most people which had this ability were moved out of the location, or at least the babies were. Any babies which were sensed with having any type of ability that could be close to that were. The adults were forced to stay, and there are certain people that aren't caught, and in the case that they've lived there long enough, they aren't allowed to get out outside of these bloodline containment centers. But that's enough of me talking about those locations for now. An E rank generally just has, since it's more standardized, it's generally more acknowledged that an E rank is 5% better at everything physically than they would be on paper. So they're 5% stronger, got 5% better reaction time, can calculate things 5% faster, so on and so forth, than what a norm having the same body would do. Other than that, the abilities that they get are pretty weak. I'm mostly going to be going up using pyrokinetics, because that's a very simple way to more just explain it. But an E rank would be getting like one fingertip they can start a fire on, and that one fingertip is basically the fire that's lit on it is only as strong as a lighter. So, and even then, there are some lighters which are more powerful than the E rank's abilities, but in their day-to-day normal life, they have 5% better, physicality without working for it. And also, can now have a lighter on hand at any point without spending money. It's a little useful, but it's not enough to really impact the daily life too much. E stands for efficient. D generally more stands for decent, and you get a bit more of a higher upgrade on the abilities power from here. Regularly, for the physical stats of someone, basically, they get a 15% boost compared to what should be on paper their normal physicality. And their ability gets kind of a more drastic upgrade here. a D rank that has, say, pyrokinetics would still probably be limited to only starting fire in their hands, but now it's not just on one single finger, it's on all of their hands, and they may sometimes be able to spark a bit more of a fire at the palm at the same time. So they can basically light up, their fingers and maybe a bit of their palm on fire. Pretty cool party trick. Can maybe be a little bit useful in some scenarios, but again, the 15% physicality is what's generally going to matter more. The only time which you really enter into where heroics or villains more go over, though very, very, very small time, is C ranks. And that's because C ranks are still 50% better now at the physicality than it would be on paper, which is quite a large jump. A norm has no chance really against even a pretty weak C, due to the fact that, the human body fighting somebody that's 50% better without being, as compact, there's very few norms that will be able to beat them, even in case they don't have a physical power. And at this point, the person with the pyrokinetics can basically throw a fireball. It may take them a few minutes before they can form another fireball, but they are able to form fireballs. This, however, does not mean norms are not, able to take care of C ranks, though. Because while it is 50% better, it only means that you have 50%, stronger bones. And somebody who's untrained, a bullet is still a bullet. It's pretty hard to dodge those, and in case you don't train your body and then take advantage of the extra 50% better than a peak human would be, you're not going to get too far. Now you got B ranks and A ranks. I myself am a B rank, and B ranks have an advantage over A ranks. We get a better physicality. We get 250% better than what our body should be. It's part of the reason why I'm so strong, Doc. After all, I trained my body to be peak physical form, as I'm pretty sure you've admired. And, well, Doc, that basically means I'm like 3x, almost 3x stronger than a peak human would be, Or 3x a peak human. I don't know. I'm not good at math. But due to that fact, I can close in on people and hit them real hard. But there are restrictions that more apply. For instance, on myself, I am infact. And I have, what do they call it? I basically am able to generate force infinitely in an object that I'm holding without it causing into a black hole and just causing force to be more released. It should eventually reach a black hole, but I've tried and nothing's happened. So the power is just breaking the laws of the universe, I suppose. That's not too unusual when you get a bit higher ranked. A B is generally a lot less flexible than an A with their abilities. For instance, I myself have 2 restrictions on my ability. While I'm able to infinitely create force, I need to, 1, hold an object for that force to go into. I can't just hit somebody really, really hard. I have to be holding an object for that force to go into. That's why I generally prefer a bat. It's casual enough to wear, and it's a bit harder to more just pick out as a weapon. And 2, it has to be connected to my body, so I can't just have a gun, put the force in the bullet, and throw the bullet or anything. It has to be connected to my body the entire time. And 3rd restriction, it has to be the more force that goes into the object gradually, because I can't just have a full force blow at once. It's why we were walking for a little bit before we were able to get out, Doc. I was stalling. Is due to the fact that, well, the more force I put into an object, the more it grows red. And as you can imagine, in a fight, something, looking kind of blindingly red before it hits you is enough for most people to know, dodge the fuck away. But in case I do hit someone with my, really better physicality, I am basically killing them in one blow. At least most of the time. There's a few harder people which take a few more minutes to charge up before I can actually hit them enough. But anyway, a pyrokinetic would generally have 3 blocks of fire at this point they could control. Their control, however, would be a lot less refined, only able to generally move it. They won't be able to make shapes or shapes or like little mini dragons or something like an A rank would. However, their fire generally has a secondary capability. For instance, maybe their fire heals people, or it can hold a building up, or something of the sort. An A rank is someone who has 200% of the physicality to 150. There's a little bit of range here. And due to that fact, however, their abilities are a lot more open and more useful in most scenarios. So someone who had my power of impact, force generation, would generally be able to create force at a range, for instance, and would also be able to do it a lot faster than I can. They wouldn't have the few minutes to get a really good hit. I'd probably hit a lot harder than that version of myself, but well, there's only so much, Doc, that I can really do at a short range. They also wouldn't have the tell that I have. Though A's and B's are kind of more seen as interchangeable. A B can win against an A, though an A is generally preferable in most scenarios. If they had pyrokinetics, for instance, they'd probably be able to manipulate the fire to the aforementioned dragon thing, or possibly they could also make weapons or other knickknacks. They also would be able to control a lot more fire. They wouldn't be just directed to only having 3 blocks of fire. They could probably fire up an entire, forest, basically, at that point. They'd also be able to control fire that's a lot further away, probably have an intimate feel for that type of, power. Other than that, there's S ranks, and S ranks completely break the system. While everyone else here has some level of variability, but their powers are more set in stone, that they can get better at it, or strengthen their power slightly. An S rank gets to, in essence, have a large amount of potential at the start of their ability dock, and then afterwards can, well, put restrictions on their power to make themselves stronger. The classic example that's more used nowadays is Mrs. Godhands. She was an S rank, and she had an ability that everyone between 50 kilometers, I believe, around her was basically in somewhat better health. Due to the fact that there was just some healing energies that went over around. It wouldn't be able to fix up much, but a common cold or something before you truly develop it too much, and your muscles healing a little bit faster, people got stronger around her a lot more, and that's how she developed, and less sick. So that's how she learned that she had an ability in the first place. And then she did 2 restrictions. She put the first restriction being that all of her healing only went towards anything she physically touched. That restriction, Doc, made it so that way, as soon as she touched someone, she could regrow bone, and basically bring somebody back from the brink of death. However, she didn't quite like that restriction too much because she was very ambitious. So she put a second restriction that only thing she touches with her hands will she be able to heal them. So unlike before, she can't heal anything in case it's touched with her hair or anything. Only her hands count. With this additional restriction, she can literally bring people back from the dead. As long as some people haven't died for 13 days, she can bring them back from the dead and get them younger. Because you can just, heal that well. She can defeat death in the typical way as well by bringing some youth back into someone's life. So they aren't just going to die again of old age. She normally gets paid a lot. The people who pay her the most are villains like me, Doc, or rich CEOs or heroes. She can also pretty much do a lot of people back to back. She normally has hired a teleporter to more just bring her around. What other rank was I talking about that they couldn't have grabbed over in the hospital? Well, Doc, there's one more rank that we are aware exists, but Luckily, we don't know anyone alive who has this level of power. Since an S stands for special, there's one rank above that. We're not going to go too far into it because they're more of a myth, but the next rank that we can understand through history that has existed is EX rank for the truly exceptional. And while an S rank breaks a lot more of the rules, an EX is literally considered the concept of that thing. We don't have any records of EXs. We only know of a few. To list two examples, we know one that was more Lilith, she called herself. This one was basically an EX that was completely done over and connected to blood. And since she's connected to the idea of blood, she could kill people very easily. She could stop someone's heart inside any vicinity by just stopping the flow of blood. She could cause you to explode in case that she cut you. It didn't, heal from what we can more tell because you're always bleeding. She can heal a lot of things because of, blood is also life. So due to the fact that it was, the idea of blood is both, life and death, and that blood can be transferred to other people. She could transfer some vitality to other people through that type of method, from what we can more tell. She was stupidly powerful. While a normal S can, level perhaps a city eventually, it would take a country to go over, would probably fall very quickly to someone like her. And the one that we have the most records about, and the specific details about Lilith, the only reason we have those is because of another EX that is only referred to as the storyteller. No matter what we do, some people do to their records, because they've written down stories or little antidotes or whatever, they can't be destroyed. It's impossible. You can break the fabric that more holds it, and then it will be on a Times Square. You can go over and rip a note, and then suddenly another book, it's going to be completely written. There'll be a new book in existence, just somewhere in the world. And the more times it gets destroyed, that message, the more public and larger that message is going to be harder to hide. It's why the general public kind of is aware of these cute little stories which have been done over on Lilith and them, due to the fact that they're done over by the storyteller. And that leads to a terrifying thought, because we don't know what the storyteller is, other than the fact that they, apparently tell stories. And that no matter what you do, you can't erase a story that they've made. Possibly, we don't know exactly. It's assumed possible that perhaps they are, fuck, I can't tell you. That's another reason. There's an info block on them. Literally, you can't say things about that one. And you can talk about the other ones, but you can't talk about her specifically. We think it's a her, at least. So yeah, kind of, that seems to give proof that one of those creatures is still alive. And, Doc, someone on that magnitude could just click their fingers and most of us are dead, including me and you, Doc. So, I don't want to keep talking about this, okay? Besides, we're almost to the alley. Yeah, wait, I used the right one. Alleyway, not hallway. I really do think that they should consider this a hallway, but so I just need to go over and enter in the code here. And there. Yeah, they haven't changed it. So come on, Doc. Enter with me into this dark abyss. And we'll be home soon. Alright? I'll make sure to take care of you. Now, remember, stay silently behind me. Me and talking the rest of the road here till we get home. See you, if you have any questions, wait until we get there. Then I may follow a promise. I don't know. See you in a little, you are going to be behind me, but I'm not going to be looking at you. So I guess technically I'm going to see you in a little while. I guess. Does that still fit? I think that still fit. Anyway, let's go, Doc. Sorry, it's just a bit confusing. My mind's a little bit in a tizzy talking about those EXs. So sorry, Doc, but just follow behind me. And remember, mindless. Good doctor.